Hey there, it's Olivia-Savannah here from Olivia's Catastrophe, and I'm super excited because it is 2 minutes to midnight here in the UK, which means it's almost November 1st, which is when I'm going to start my challenge, which is the 30 books in 30 days challenge. I'll be vlogging throughout the month to see if I can achieve that. And let me tell you a bit about my history with this challenge. I've done 30 books in 30 days 3 times in my life, and I have won and achieved 30 books in 30 days every single time I've done it. However, this is the first time I'm going to be doing it while I work a 9-to-5 job. All the other times I was a student, and so I haven't done it in a while because I am aware that I just don't really have the time. And so to make it more approachable, I'm also going to be reading the shortest 30 books that I own on my TBR for 30 books in 30 days, and I'm going to allow myself this because I'm doing it while I'm working. We've got 1 more minute left. So the first book that I'm going to be reading tonight is Arlo Parks's poetry collection. This is called The Magic Border, and this is their poetry collection that's interspersed with photography that a friend has made, and it's not only poetry, it's also song lyrics. And I'm someone who typically doesn't like to sit down and read a whole poetry collection from beginning until end. I think it kind of loses something, detracts something. But it's 1 minute past midnight, which means it's time for me to start reading my poetry collection and hopefully ace the challenge. Let's do it. Good morning. So I didn't finish my book at midnight. I fell asleep reading, typical bookworm behavior, and even though I set my alarm for later, typical me behavior, I still woke up before my alarm. So I did actually finish reading the poetry collection, The Magic Border, and I think I showed you the insides because it has nice photography to it. And while I thought it was fine, I just thought it was fine overall. This poetry collection was really personal to the poet, it felt like, and so sometimes she was just listing things that are supposed to create or like refer to what I believe might be a moment or a snapshot of something that they experienced, but because we're not in on what that was, I found it very hard to connect to the poetry. I think poetry is really important to try and get that balance between personal, relatable for other people who are going to read it, and I do find that these poems just bridge too much on personal and on situations that I don't know what it is about. I don't know, but the writing or the wording is so specific that I do know it's based on something that's legit and real and concrete. I just can't access it myself. So I felt like the poems are a bit too personal for me to be able to delve into, and I haven't ever read like a collection of song lyrics before, and I have read song lyrics before when I'm trying to understand some of the songs that I listen to in languages outside of English because I want to kind of know their meaning and understanding behind the songs. However, when I do that, I've already got what the song sounds like in my head because I've listened to it, I've played it. But with this, I really struggled because I don't know what the song sounds like, and I felt very detached. So unless there was rhyme in the song lyrics, I didn't really gel with it, and I just don't think reading song lyrics are my thing. But this is a mixture of poetry and song lyrics, and so the song lyrics weren't my thing, and the poetry I just found a bit fine but inaccessible to me as a reader. So it was just an overall okay one. The photography was okay. I didn't have anything that was my favourite photograph that related to one of the poems, but I do think it was a nice touch to have something visual included in there, so I wouldn't mind seeing a different poetry collection with photography elements included into it. This morning while I was getting ready, I was reading Live Like a Goddess, but I really enjoyed these and I finished it already. So book 1 is done and book 2 out of 30 is done as well, which I'm very happy to report that before 9 AM I've actually read 2 books in the month of November. So this one is a collection of goddesses, and it's called Live Like a Goddess because for every goddess story that she tells you and for every goddess you learn about in this, she's also going to tell you a lesson that she has learned from reading their story. What I liked about this one is how international it was. There were just so many different goddesses from all around the world that you hear from, and I've been reading a lot of folklore and goddess lore and mythology lore lately, and I still learned about new stories. So it really went into detail on those stories. I really enjoyed seeing how they unfolded, and I think the lessons that she takes from them are so important, whether it's about feminism, whether it's about toxic relationships, whether it's about being yourself and standing up for things that you want or going a different way from the path well traveled. All of the lessons I felt like were very good ones for teenagers to learn, but if you have a teenager who's kind of interested in mythology and magics and fantasy, this is a great way to get those messages to them without it being too on the nose, but also having the mythology that they tend to enjoy reading. I had a good time reading this, and it also gave me a few reminders of things that I need to learn especially. And now that it's nearing 9 AM, it's time for me to start working. I'm working from home today, which is actually why I've been able to do so much reading this morning. It's giving me a lot of time. But I wanted to introduce you to what my next book is going to be. Once I'm done with work, I might even start it on my lunch break because I'm loving the head start that I'm giving myself on my challenge today. So I'm going to read So Late in the Day by Claire Keegan. Claire Keegan is a literary Irish short fiction writer who I'm just hearing so much about lately, and this one is legitimately 50 pages long. It's under 50 pages long, which is amazing. It's really short. When I said I was going to be reading the shortest books on my TBR for this challenge, I was not lying. I should not have this much energy for 11 PM at night, but I do. Even though I was awake so early and I didn't sleep much, I have so much energy. But today is the end of, well, right now it's the end of day one, and I'm about to go to sleep once I calm down enough. But I wanted to run you through the rest of the day. So I did my workout, and then I made dinner. I made crispy chili tofu. So it has like a sweet chili flavor to it. I never made it before, and it was really nice and really delicious. This is from the 20-minute vegan cookbook because it's basically the only cookbook I use at the moment, and it's so good. And actually, while I was cooking the dinner, I was listening to the audiobook of Learned by Heart by Emma Donoghue. So this book is a proof. So I've got the proof edition here, and the proof is really cute because it has this wraparound thing that you kind of need to like open it and unlock it to see the full cover. Wonderful, creative marketing. I love it, except it makes it so difficult actually reading the book, because when the book is open, like, you've just got these flaps that are kind of just lingering in the corners of your vision, and it really was annoying me. So I started reading this one physically, and I was just like, I cannot read this proof. I need to listen to the audiobook instead. I could get a free copy of the audiobook through my library, and I waited for it to come in because of course Emma Donoghue's books are very popular, so now I'm currently listening to this one. This one is based on Gentleman Jack, and this one is kind of a reimagining of Gentleman Jack's time period in a school where she's at a finishing school in York and she meets someone that she really fancies, and it's based on the letters that are in real life and were exchanged between these two women. So that is what this one is based on, and I've read 81 pages of it, which puts me at the quarter mark, I think, and so far I'm just finding it okay. I do think it's really slow, and I think I'm getting a bit spurred on from the slowness because of the fact that I'm listening to it. I think if I was reading it, it would feel even slower if I was reading it physically. But reading it through my ears, at least the pace is picked up a bit. There are quite a lot of characters. I don't see enough differentiation between all of the girls at the school. There are clearly our two main characters, but all of the other side character girls in this I'm really struggling to keep up with. Now, I'm not usually one to nitpick historical period time language. It's 1800s England, and she mentioned someone said, "We do not see colour," which just feels like such a contemporary times term to be used in this book. It just threw me right out of the historical time period. So I did note that. I'm still reading. Hopefully the story will pick up a bit more. And then after making the dinner and doing those things, me and Simone watched the first episode of Chainsaw Man, which is an anime we decided to start. It was a wild first episode. I will say that it did make me laugh until I cried. It is day 2 of the reading challenge and I am doing pretty well, I think. So I'm going to give you a bit of an update. I didn't really vlog anything today. I woke up this morning, I rolled over, and the first thing I did was reach for my book, and I read the 47 pages of So Late in the Day by Keegan, as I said I was going to. And it was very quick. I just read it all in about 45 minutes as soon as I woke up with my brain on when it was fully switched on. And this one is about a man who is on his way home from work, and you get to see in flashbacks that he was going to spend his life with this woman, and then you gradually find out what happened. And it was nice. It was good. I don't know if I would have paid for this full price, because this is the proof for something that is so short, and as a short story it is effective. It feels full enough. It doesn't feel like it needed to be longer, it doesn't feel like it needed to be shorter, and it's largely focusing on the ways in which men treat women, and it's nothing too graphic, so don't worry about that, but it did manage to say something impactful in such a short story, which I'm impressed by. But then again, would I have paid full price for this? Probably not. I think I would get this from a secondhand shop or from the library if I was going to read it, but it was still a good read, and I haven't read anything by Keegan before. It was a very good introduction to her work. It felt like one of those penguin little green classics, like a good taste into what someone's writing is like, and if you're a fan of those little green classics or little black classics, you're probably going to appreciate reading this one. It was a good read. I also, in the process of getting ready for work in the morning and having breakfast, I continued listening to my audiobook of Learned by Heart by Emma Donoghue. I'm going to show it to you opened up, because then you're getting to see the cover, and you know what, it's nice to see the cover when someone is talking about a book. So this one, I am now a couple of pages away from halfway. I didn't quite reach it before I had to start work today, and I had a pretty full day, so I needed to really start work on time. And it's much the same. I don't have anything more to add. I'm finding it way too slow paced, like way too slow paced. And I think it might be the end of the road for Emma Donoghue's new titles and me, to be honest. I wasn't thrilled with Haven, and I just don't think this one is going to be ticking any boxes for me anytime soon. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the person of colour representation in this. Again, it's nothing awful, but it is just very, very stereotypical. And I'm just like, is Emma Donoghue the best person to tell this story? That is the question I have in my mind. She's not doing a bad job of it. I don't know. And this is not my stance on that subject as a whole. It's just my stance on this particular book. It feels so monotone and everyday as we learn about the school and what these kids are being taught. It goes into a bit too much detail, which is the example of someone who's very well researched, but that research is showing, and that's not ideally what you want in a fiction book. I've got 2 more Emma Donoghue books on my shelf other than this. And so what am I doing this evening? Again, pretty rare, but I have a night in, and tonight it is Patreon reading sprints night. I always enjoy my Patreon reading sprints because they feel very intimate and cozy and very, very chill. They seem less high stakes, if you can call reading sprints high stakes, than the ones that I host on my own channel when I do. So I'm looking forward to just reading along with my Patreons, and for that I'm going to be reading The Lost Whale by Hannah Gold. This is a middle grade book. I put my bookmark in it, but I haven't started. I don't actually know what it's about. But I did read The Last Bear by Hannah Gold a year ago-ish, just over a year ago, and it was fantastic, and it focused on animal preservation and environmentalism, and it had a really lovely character with some nice illustrations amongst it. But I'm looking forward to reading as much of this as I can tonight. I just finished the reading sprint and I actually started and finished The Lost Whale by Hannah Gold, and this was a delightful story. So what it was really about, because I don't think I did a very good job, was it was about this young boy who gets sent to live with his grandmother because his mother is unwell and is struggling with mental health, which I believe is depression. And while he's there, he discovers that his mother used to really love the whales that she sees while she's living in this place by the ocean, and so he wants to help her feel better by taking photos of these whales that she used to love but doesn't get to see anymore. And it was a beautiful book. Hannah Gold just knows how to write middle grade in a way that feels mature, in a way that feels lyrical and beautiful and poetic, but it's so well understandable and clearly written that a child can read it and lose themselves in this story as well. It's a very mature topic, as he's really yearning for his mother and that mother-son relationship that he hasn't had in the past few years or the past few months because of the fact that she's been so depressed. And he has to relinquish a lot of the pain that he feels by the fact that he thinks he's failed her, that she needs to go to a hospital or a clinic to get help. And it was lovely. It also talked a lot about whales and the ocean and the damage that we're doing to the seas and the ocean and the animals within them. And I did tune out a bit there, but that's all down to personal taste, as I'm not someone who typically reads about animals. It's not my favorite reading subject, but I do think it's an important topic. I do think children should be reading about this. And it did it in a way where it's like, sure, yes, we've made the planet worse. Yes, there are a lot of things that are going wrong, but here's the small steps and the small things that you can do as a person to contribute to making the world a better place. Of course, these are steps that children can do, and it's buried in the story and wrapped up neatly in the fiction. And it also ends on a hopeful note, as in these things can really make a difference if we all work together, which is, you need some hope if you're giving it to children. You just need that hope. If you're giving it to adults, give them hope too, please. I've got a delightful candle. It actually smells like a soap that my granddad used to use. May he rest in peace. So I'm feeling a bit emotional this evening, like breathing in the scent and reading such an emotional book. But it was a lovely time, and that means I've read 4 out of 30 books by day 2. Just back from the British Library because we went to a book event. This was at the, we're coming back to you, Simone. This was at the British Library, and it was part of the Black to the Future events. And as this goes up, there is still time to go to more Black to the Future events, okay? So even though this was the first one, there's one on December 3rd, which has Adjoa Ando there, who you may know as Lady Danbury. And also in January, N.K. Jemisin is going to be here for a book event. That's a big deal, all the way from the US. But this was the very first one, and it was a event where Rivers Solomon, who you know as I Love the Deep so much, was there, and they were talking with Chella, who is making a game which has to do with Windrush Tales and sounded really interesting, and also Corey, who does graphic novels. And there was a chair too, and Rivers did a signing afterwards. How did you feel at the signing, sis?
My first signing, it was really cool. Rivers was just so chill about everything.
And you bought a book, didn't you?
I did. I bought The Deep, as recommended by Olivia-Savannah from one of her wrap-ups that I edited, so I'm very excited to read that.
And I got my copies of Sorrowland and then Kindness of Ghost signed, because those are the ones I have here in the UK. And then after that, they had an event at the Drexcian. It was like a Drexcian music event in the library, and they converted the library to have like drinks, and there was a bit of an interview, but then there was a lot of live music and really cool lights that were portraying the graphic novel on there, and it turned into a little bit of a dance thing. And there were some really cool people there. Do you have anything to say about the event?
Yeah, there was people dressed in like this Afro-futuristic kind of like armor slash like, there was like silk dripping and stuff. It looked really cool.
Yeah, we had a good time.
Yeah, it was fun. There was some dancing. Well, some people were dancing. It was fun.
And I was very surprised by a very lovely goodie bag, which I didn't expect, and I just showed you some of the postcards and bits and pieces in there. But I'll be going to the other events, hopefully catch you there if you're in London. They're very affordable, and it's always great to support Black authors and Black creators. Hello, it's day 4 of the reading challenge and we are still going strong. I am really cold and wet because I just came back from picking up a second-hand desk. I'm happy to have my own desk. I've actually been lending my sister's for all of this time, so it's going to be nice to have my own, and it was collection only, so I went and picked it up. But now I'm cold and wet and I want to have a cup of tea, so I feel like now is a good time to introduce you to the new tea advent calendar I'm going to be using. But before I do that, let me catch up to speed on the reads that I've been doing since yesterday. Yesterday I finished listening to this one, which is Upside Down, and it's learned by heart by Emma Donoghue, the proof that I was struggling to read physically. I finished it very quickly and I don't have much more to add. I did think this was really slow and really boring, and I don't think it amounted to much. Like, the ending didn't amount to much. We were literally just following these girls at school, and I can tell that this was centered around the Gentleman Jack element of what was written on the window in the school, and it was like there wasn't much else for the author to work with because the author just didn't add much else to the story. It was really slow and really boring, and so because of that I kind of just want to get rid of all the Emma Donoghue books I read because I didn't like this one. I'm not going to be picking up anything new, so I decided what I would do was start reading The Wonder by Emma Donoghue this morning. This one is set in Ireland and it's about this 11-year-old girl who stops eating. In fact, she hasn't eaten for 4 months, at least so she says, and she's still alive even though a morsel has not passed her lips. So they send in this nurse from the UK and a nun from somewhere else to watch over this girl and check if it's truly a miracle or is it all a hoax, and that's what she's there to do. And I read the first 67 pages this morning, and actually I'm more intrigued than I've been with any of the Emma Donoghue books I haven't been liking so far. I do find it an interesting concept. I want to know what's really going on because I don't believe in this whole miracle thing. I've actually seen from Haven and this one that Emma Donoghue was always fascinated by the overtly religious and miraculous kind of imagery and thought process in her books, and I can see that coming through in this. And Lib, the main character that we're following, is just kind of has the same thoughts that I would have in this situation, so I kind of like our main characters so far. So this one's actually off to a better start than I've been feeling with other Emma Donoghue books. But I feel like what I want to read now is just something short and quick that I can whiz through and tick off another book today, and so I'm going to be reading a play. So I have here a bind up of 2 Arthur Miller plays. So the first one in here is A View from the Bridge, and the other one in here is All My Sons. I've not read either of those before. I don't know anything about them. With my plays, I do just kind of go in not knowing anything. I think it's really hard to get a play published, so if you've got a play published, it's usually pretty good. I've also read 2 other plays by Arthur Miller before, 2 or 3? 2 I think, and I've enjoyed both of them immensely, so I'm also like, in Arthur Miller we trust. And I'm going to start with A View from the Bridge, and I'm going to make myself my cup of tea and read that right now. So the tea calendar that I went with, drum roll please, I went with a Tea Pigs tea advent calendar. So Tea Pigs is a brand over here in the UK, and they're very environmentally friendly with how they do all of their packaging, and I've been really impressed with their tea bags that I've had separately to this advent calendar in people's houses and at work and stuff, because it seems like they put the loose leaves just into a tea sack. And I know that all tea bags do that essentially, but when I had the chamomile one, I could actually see the chamomile buds and flowers through the tea bag, and I was like, that's really impressive. Yes, sustainable plant-based packaging, give back to the communities that bring us tea. Yes, oops, I just ripped it. Well done. To get the nation drinking real tea. That's their mission. So, we're unboxing a tea advent calendar here. This is also one of the biggest tea advent calendars I've seen. Like, the Puka one is really flat. Oh, whoa. Look at... And there's also some on the other side. I am in love. Okay, so this is fantastic. This is amazing. Okay, where do I start? Where's number 1? Oh, I see it in the camera. this is number 1. So let's open it. Ooh. Tea Pigs limited edition. This is their spiced pear tea, if you can see that, spiced pear. A blend of fruit, spices and natural flavourings, sweet pears, warming spices and a great big dollop of festive feels. Get ready to initiate full-on hibernation mode with spiced pear, our ultimate winter warmer. Best enjoyed alongside a mince pie or 5, which I have none of. We're kicking off things with a wintry delight that is warm and fruity. I am so excited. I haven't had a pear flavoured tea before. I think that's quite monumental in and of itself. Okay, I think it's cooled down enough to try this tea. I'm very pleased by its colour, which looks very light peachy, which seems legit for pear tea. That's delicious. So I would say the pear flavouring is quite light. It did say it was spiced pear, so the pear flavouring is quite light, but you can really taste all the spices, like all of the festive spice flavours that you want to warm you up from the inside. It's definitely in that cup of tea. And I think because they have so many spices, it does drown out the pear a little bit. I've let this stew for quite some time, so it's definitely not that I didn't let it stew enough. But the pear is there. The pear flavouring is there. It's just a very light touch of pear. And then lots of festive spice flavours. I've got my book. Let's get some reading done. I just finished reading Act 1 of A View from the Bridge, and it's really, really interesting. So it's actually about this family. There's an uncle, an aunt, and the niece. And they all live in this house in America, and it's very small. And their cousins arrive on a ship, and they are illegal immigrants. So they're housing these illegal immigrants for them. One of them is a cousin who has a wife and children back home, and he's sending money back home. But the other one is a young man who's also a cousin, or who is related to the cousin, and he just wants to live in America. He wants to move there, he wants to make money, he wants to make a life there. So he starts dating the niece that's kind of in the flat, starts courting her, and the uncle is really unhappy about that. He feels a lot of tension, he feels a lot of resentment. He doesn't want his darling niece to grow up at all, and it's about those rising and mounting tensions. And it's fascinating, like you can see how the immigrant status is such a big part of this story, and you can see the rising toxic masculinity as he's so upset with his niece becoming a woman and him having to like let her go. He can't do that. The last act is Act 2. It's noticeably shorter than the act that I just read, so I'll have no problem finishing this today. But first of all, I wanted to introduce Simone to Haunted Mansion. It's a Disney film. I saw it in the cinema with a friend as it was my friend's pick. I had no interest in it whatsoever, and I really, really enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to introducing Simone to it. It'll be a rewatch for me. And I just wanted to add on the tea that it did get better the longer I let it stew. The longer I let it stew, the stronger the pear sweetness flavour came in. So I would just stew it a bit longer than the 3 to 5 minutes that it said, and like give it full time. Okay, so this, covering my address, this box just arrived and it looked really cute, and I thought we could do an unboxing, which I don't often do here on my channel. But this is from To Loot to Hoots, and they are a picture book, I think, children's company. They publish picture books. This looks lovely. There's a letter in here from the publisher, which I will read later, and it looks like this on the inside. So the first thing I can see here is a very cute biscuit with icing of the logo on there, which I will eat presently. I love a good biscuit, I love a good snack. The press releases where publishers tell you a bit more about the book that's inside. But first, let's open the book. Lovely. I don't know, I'm not doing a good job of this unboxing. The sun is so bright right now. Was the inside where it's beautifully wrapped like this. And then we have here a bookmark, which is really lovely. This is the bookmark for the Frances Hardinge book in there. And, oh, this is cute. This is a little art print that goes kind of with the book. The first book I have here is The Island of Whispers by Frances Hardinge. So Frances Hardinge wrote it. She also wrote a book I really liked earlier this year that was young adult fantasy, and it's illustrated by Emily Gravett. So this one's about Milo, who is a young boy, and he is tasked with becoming the ferryman who lets the dead move on to the next world because his parent who used to do it has gone missing, but there are people chasing after him. This looks lovely. Okay, so this is not like, I thought they were all going to be picture books, and while this one is like beautifully illustrated and everything, I wouldn't call it a picture book. I would call it more like a fairy tale-esque book with illustrations. That's lovely. Then we've got The Wolf and the Bear by Rolfe. That's really nice and colourful. Sorry about the lighting today, folks. This one is a picture book. Fantastic. And I believe it's about a wolf and a bear. I'm looking forward to reading this. I'll probably just read this month because I need picture book recommendations to give to my nephew for Christmas. And then we have a Michael Morpurgo. I used to read a lot of Michael Morpurgo. A Michael Morpurgo picture book, and this is also illustrated by Emily Gravett, who did the one with Frances Hardinge. It says The Ogre Who Wasn't. That, ugh, lovely. So I've got 2 picture books to read, which I will read probably this month, but I probably won't count towards this challenge unless I'm struggling at the end. Maybe these could be books 29 and 30. So those are lovely. And then this one would definitely count as a book because it's got a lot more words to it, so it's another possible one for me to read at the end of this month, potentially, if I'm struggling to make my count. Love them both. Don't love how the sun was trying to ruin the like one and only unboxing I do on my channel. Hi guys, it's past midnight and I'm just going to try and do this update very quickly, but I just finished reading A View from the Bridge by Arthur Miller, and it ruined me a little bit. Like, it was just so good, and it makes me miss uni because I kind of just want to go to uni tomorrow morning, 9 AM seminar, be a little bit sleepy and have someone to discuss, like have a seminar where I can discuss with a group of people the key moments of this play. I just want to break it down. I want to take it to pieces. I want to write an essay comparing it to another play or deep diving into the themes and the pivotal moments because it was just that good. And it largely was discussing like toxic masculinity, what it means to be a refugee, what it means to have that pride and identity in American values, especially the dysfunctional family element. He also loves to do that quite a bit, and you see that reflected here. But that second act, it was like the first act, I was like, oh, this is good, this is intriguing, this setup and the foreboding sense something's going to go wrong is intriguing, and then you get to act 2 and it just disintegrates, it all falls to pieces. And I was just like, why is this man the way that he is? I was internally screaming at him and the choices the characters were making, and it just gave me everything that I love in a play. I do kind of need to sleep now because it's coming up to 1 AM. But before I do, I can also tell you that I've only got 100 pages left in The Wonder by Emma Donoghue, and I'm enjoying it. It's like one of those books that has a slow build to it, but the tensions are rising, and I can sense that there's a bit of a romantic connection in this one as well. But I'm not that convinced by the romance. I don't really care about it that much. It's not like a main part of the story. It's largely about the girl who is proclaiming that she's miraculously not needing to eat food, but it kind of looks like it might be something else right now. And it's one of those books where whether it's a 3-star or a 4-star is largely going to come down to this end bit now. Like, we need to know the truth. And once we know the truth, it's going to be easier to understand how I feel about the book. But so far, it's not been bad at all. I like our main character. I believe in all of her reasonings. And it's an intriguing premise and plot. I'm just curious to see how it's all going to end up. There's so much mysteriousness still to this book. I kind of want to finish it tomorrow. I'm doing a lot tomorrow because it's also bonfire night. But we shall see. Welcome officially to day 5 of the challenge. Why do I feel like I've already lived 10,000 lives and it's only been 5 days in November? Anyway, I did manage to fall asleep at the end. I fell asleep around 2 a.m-ish, I'm guessing. I didn't know the time exactly, but yeah, I think I fell asleep around 2 a.m-ish. Reading helped. I I read the prologue of Everything the Darkness Eats, and I'm somewhere on chapter 1. I'm gonna have to find where I was later. But the prologue was interesting. It was very brutal straight from the beginning. So it seems like something supernatural is at hand in this book. I don't actually know what it's about because I was reading on my Kindle, so I didn't even have the synopsis, so I can't tell you yet, but I will get back to you on that one later. However, this morning I have been filming. I actually just finished filming. I dropped Simone off at church. I'm about to go and pick her up in a hot minute, but I finished reading The Wonder by Emma Donoghue this morning, just as I was waiting for Simone to finish getting ready so I could take her to church, and I really enjoyed this one. I do think I saw all of the plot beats coming and all of the plot twists coming. I actually predicted everything in this book. I don't think everyone will be able to, but I pretty much did. So that took away some of the enjoyment for me, and sometimes I was really frustrated by the character's choices. And yet, even though I was frustrated by the character's choices, I could always understand why she made the choice that she did, and it was nice seeing things unravel. Even though it happened the way that I expected it to, everything felt in the realm of the believable. Everything kind of made sense for the ending that you get in this book, and so I really liked it overall. This proves that Emma Donoghue does have another book that is good other than Rome, to me at least, and so I was very happy reading this book. I'm going to church. My church is an evening session that I'm going to today, and it's bonfire day, or it's bonfire night tonight. It's the 5th of November, and so they will be doing fireworks, so I'll get to see that. So it's been a few days since I've last updated this challenge, and now we are on day 8. I'm well aware that for 30 books in 30 days vlog, I'm supposed to be vlogging my experience day by day, but you know what's really difficult? Having a full-time job and trying to read books and trying to create content at the same time. Let's talk about the books and catch you up a little bit on where I am with this challenge as of day 8. Everything the Darkness Eats by LaRocca. I started this one day and I finished it during Kasha's reading sprints that I was on Monday. This is LaRocca's sinister horror book. I really don't know if I can explain what it's about because it's so vague, but I will say it's an adult horror fiction book with a load of queer characters, and the horror in this one has a lot to do with godly and religious imagery, but also the homophobic horrors that some people have to face. I think that's the best way that I can summarize it. It is supernatural horror, and it is really weird and strange. It's weird and strange in the way that Annihilation is, but because it's taking religious horror elements, it's like a completely different weird and strange in terms of its horror. It was absolutely up my street. I don't tend to find most horror terrifying, but if you give me enough body gore but also enough psychological horror elements, I will be able to get behind it. And for most of this book, I was wondering, like, where is it going? What is it coming towards? But then the ending happened and I was like, oh my goodness, I kind of don't understand, but I kind of love it anyway. And it's absolutely the kind of horror book that I would reread and get even more out of on a reread. I was fascinated, I was intrigued, I was disgusted, and I loved it. Then I have started reading Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Gottlieb. This is a non-fiction memoir kind of book about a therapist and her job as a therapist, and she talks about how she gets into becoming a therapist, and it's actually quite a long and winding journey. But at the same time, she's talking about the fact that one day her boyfriend rolled over, the boyfriend she thought she was going to spend the rest of her life with, get married to, etc., and he said, I can't live my life with a child anymore. And she has a child, and this breakup kind of wrecks her emotionally, and at some point she decides that maybe she needs to talk to someone, and she is going to be on the other side of the therapist chair. She's going to be one of the patients. However, as someone who is also a therapist, she's kind of psychoanalyzing her experience being on the other side of the sofa or the chair or whatever you want to call it. I am someone who is especially fascinated, I guess, by human psychology. I do find that whole situation fascinating. You can probably see this from identity and grief and our connections and relationships to each other and found family being some of my favorite topics to read about. And so I am absolutely fascinated by this. I'm learning so much. Also, when she talks about particular cases with patients, I'm just finding that whole thing fascinating. It's also something that makes therapy seem more approachable to me as someone who might not be the kind to go because I'm not very trusting and I'm not very good at opening up and talking to people. It makes it seem more approachable because now I have a better understanding of what I would be getting into if I went into therapy. I've only read 98 pages of this, so I'm about a quarter of the way through. There's still a lot more to go, but I've been talking about what I've learned from this book with my sister, with my friends. I've been telling people about the different scenarios that I'm learning about when reading this, and if I start telling people about a book I'm reading to this extent, it usually means it's going to be a new favorite. It usually means, especially non-fiction, it usually means I'm adoring it and I just need to recite these facts, recite these things that I'm learning that I'm finding fascinating, or prompt discussion with other people around me. And this is the book that I fell asleep reading last night, and that was The House in the Woods by Yvette, and I actually woke up this morning and I quickly finished it at 5:30 a.m. before I started getting ready for my work day. And this is a middle grade horror book about these children who go to a haunted house, and the ghost that they encounter follows them home and they need to kind of do something about it. And I have struggled with the one middle grade horror book that I've read since getting back into middle grade. When I was younger, I used to read a lot more of the middle grade horror genre, like Goosebumps and stuff like that, but now as an adult I just don't think it's for me. Like this one, there was nothing particularly that I disliked about it other than the incessant fart jokes, but when you read middle grade sometimes you just get incessant fart jokes. But other than that, there's nothing that I can say I disliked. It was doing the horror element, it had some of the typical haunting things to it, and I did perk up a bit when it started talking about some of the paranormal technology and gadgets they would need to use to be able to track and monitor and try and help these ghosts out. But after the sciencey bit died down, my enthusiasm died down and I was kind of just reading this. So this is not a negative review. I don't think there's anything bad with this book. I think I'm just working out that the middle grade horror genre might not be for me, or I need to figure out what kind of middle grade horror works for me. And on the tube to and from work for the past 2 days, because I've been going into the office, I started reading Concerning My Daughter by Hye-Jin, and this is translated by Jamie Chung. This is an adult literary book that's translated from Korean, I believe, and it's about this old woman. She's elderly now and her daughter is in her 30s, and her daughter needs to move back in with her mother because she's having trouble with money, but her daughter is queer and she has a girlfriend, so the girlfriend is also coming to move in with the mum, and the mum has made it clear that she is not accepting of this. She is not comfortable with the fact that her daughter is dating a woman, and now they're going to be living in the home with her. So I've read about a third of this so far and I'm finding it interesting. I'm struggling a bit with the writing style. I just don't think I'm clicking with the writing style. It's a bit there's no speech marks, so the speech is just kind of integrated into the text, and the text kind of drifts from one topic to another. If you like stream of consciousness writing style, you will probably like this more than I am at the moment, but I'm still finding it so intriguing and I'm learning so much from it. I haven't actually read that many books where it's talking about queer characters who are Asian, where it's set in Asia. Often it's American Asian experiences that I've been reading about. So this is kind of fascinating to me and newly opening my eyes to a very different experience about what it's like to be queer in Korea. But it's also not told from their perspective. It's told from the perspective of this mother who's struggling to come to terms with the fact that her daughter is queer, and that now that's in her face, she can see it all of the time. But also this woman is kind of mourning, like, because she's so resistant to this idea, she's mourning like, where did I go wrong with my daughter? But also, this is what my life is. And she talks about what it's like to go elderly in Korea, where money is an issue and where she doesn't have much money, and she's wondering what will become of her in the future. She's mourning the beauty and the youth that she used to have. So there's a lot that this elderly woman is working through, and I think this year, namely, I've read more and more books with elderly characters, and just hearing them talk about age, which is not something that I'm particularly worried about myself right now, not yet, but it's coming for all of us. I just find it fascinating. So even though the writing style is not particularly working for me, I've been taking a lot from this, and it's been interesting to process, and I wonder if the elderly lady is going to come around to her daughter and accept her for who she is. Okay folks, it's very late at night and I'm very tired, but I do want to tell you that I finished reading. Oh, the light is making it so bright, but you know that this is concerning my daughter, and this is one that I'm gonna have to think about, because ultimately I learned a lot from it. I took a lot away from that book. It's one of those books that you don't really read it to enjoy it. You read it because it's gonna make you feel and think, and it's massively complex and complicated. The way that it was talking about, let's just pop it up here, so it's always in shot. The way that it was talking about growing old and what it means to grow old, and what it means to be confronted with ideas and concepts that are going to change your mind or change your view set or the way that you've lived life, despite the fact that you've lived a whole life and you're old, is just really fascinating. Even though it's a book about an elderly woman, I appreciated the ending. I really thought it was going to reach more solid conclusions with some of its themes by the time it came to the ending. But the fact that it has questions still hanging over certain elements of the ending gives you the feeling like, oh yeah, she's an old woman, but this is not her end. She still has time. And I appreciated that. I appreciated how, I know it's very character driven and thematic one, it didn't end where I expected it to end. It didn't end as solidly as I assumed it was going to. But it still ended in a satisfying way to me. And then lastly, there's a depiction here of care and what it's like to be caring for an elderly person. I've never fully had to care for an elderly person before. The ways in which elderly people are taken advantage of largely, especially if they have chosen not to have children, or chosen to have people who are left behind to take care of them, or who don't even want to take care of them. And I think I said a lot of significant things on that subject, and then at some point it showed how difficult it can be to care for someone, which I can relate to some degree as a primary carer for someone, but that is slightly different because it's not elderly, it's disability. Anyway, I had lots of thoughts reading this one, and I found it a very interesting book. I need to think about my thoughts on that a bit more, but nonetheless, I'm so tired. I'm gonna go to sleep and finish this vlog here. Thanks so much for joining me on the first leg of this 30 books in 30 days challenge. It just feels so different and a bit more challenging than any of the other ones I've done before, even though I had bigger books in those. So I think it's going to be interesting to reflect on this challenge in my wrap up. Let me know in the comment section down below, how often do you stay up late reading, or do you do your reading in the morning? Do you do your reading in the evening? Let me know. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you are subscribed because you're going to want to see the next book in this series. And don't forget to hit the notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video. And you know what they say, onwards and upwards. Excelsior!